How you doing? It's a pleasure to have you on. For anyone who doesn't know, my guest today is extremely popular business coach. She served a lot of people and a lot of great experience to talk about today. So I'm super excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, David.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so how'd you get into all of this? Where did your journey start? How'd you start to begin to help entrepreneurs and really what got you into all of this?
Yeah, sure. So I think that I was born in a family of entrepreneurs. Actually, my family was very humble in the beginning of my, early years, let's say. But my parents always had different types of businesses. They started very small. They were very humble with work. And I
Mhm.
just saw that as an opportunity as well to show up. So I think that I developed an entrepreneurial personality very early in my life. So I always saw myself wanting to be a great student, wanting to do more, wanting to help others come up with, new solutions to problems and challenges. So I saw that. I noticed. I was just remembering this this past week. I used to make like little bracelets and sell at school. There was always
Mhm.
something going on in my life, and I started in the morning. At 15, I decided to go to work. So I worked in the afternoon, and then in the evening, I would study English in Brazil. I wanted to speak fluently, or I would do sports. So there was always a lot going on in my life. And I've noticed that, from like my early years in high school. And that's kind of how I noticed my entrepreneurial, let's say, spirit. So when I was 20, I actually found an opportunity to bring a really famous Italian jeans store to Brazil. Uh, it's named Replay, and then I had my store. Like all of a sudden, I had this amazing international store at a mall, and I had to manage not only my brick and mortar store, but clients and
Mhm.
teams and marketing, promotion, and traveling to Italy to buy clothes. I'm like, I sometimes I forget that I've done those things.
Yeah.
And that was actually not a successful experience for me when I was 20 something.
Mhm.
But I've learned a lot. I've learned that I'm very smart. I actually can feel and notice when people are trying to take advantage of me because they
Mhm.
thought I didn't know what I was doing when I did. And
Mhm.
I actually could jump ship before it was too late. So I
Mhm.
ended up not losing money on this venture, but I gained many lessons. And then after that, I just decided to be very focused on being an entrepreneur in a big corporations. So I was responsible for human resources, strategy. My last position was as an investors director, and all with that entrepreneurial mindset to always add value, to bring more value to shareholders, to communities, to employees, until I decided again to flip the switch to being an entrepreneur with my own business again 10 years ago.
Mhm.
So a long journey that I can look back and be very proud of, but I would say I started early, very early
Mhm.
when I was a teenager as an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and what would you say some of the biggest differences are between, you said you worked at a very large company and human resources and stuff like that, versus maybe building a company from the ground up? What are some cool differences that you've seen in that transition?
Yes. So the biggest difference I think is that when you're working for big companies, they already have everything lined
Mhm.
up for
Mhm.
you. You already have the place, you've got the emails, you've got the systems, you've got the team, the
Mhm.
assistant, the manager. Everything is already built for you. Someday, somehow, that company started also from day one, from nothing, but they had time and they built that up. So I feel that in the corporate world, I was backed up with more structure and more
Mhm.
people to support me. When I decided to be an entrepreneur, I was alone, I was by
Mhm.
myself, and I had to build those things from scratch. So that also gave me a lot of freedom to do whatever I wanted to, because many
Mhm.
of the things that I saw in the corporate world were things that I did not agree with anymore. My values were different. They changed over time. So that freedom of choice
Hmm.
that entrepreneurship gives you is also very fulfilling. At the
Hmm.
same time, you catch yourself alone,
Hmm.
at least for a while, until you're not a solopreneur anymore,
Yep.
and you have to figure everything out.
Hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. I definitely could agree with that. Where I think, because I've worked at two very big companies in the finance realm, and I've started my own business, and I can just tell you that the biggest difference I've seen is just that, where it's the structure, the lack of organization, where when you go into these big companies, everything's already laid out for you. But when you make
Yeah.
your own company, and you don't even realize, but you have to build all the systems that you take for granted, like all the SOPs, what you're supposed to do every day. So I literally couldn't agree more on that one. And so what got you into, so, you're very successful for these big companies and you started your own business, but what got you into the coaching side of entrepreneurship?
Yes. So that is an interesting question because that was exactly the clash of values
Hmm.
that I experienced
Hmm.
that got me to a turning point in my life. So I was always about peak performance. It was
Hmm.
always about optimum health
Hmm.
and all of that. So I used to live in São Paulo, which is one of the biggest cities in the world.
Hmm.
And every day at lunchtime, I would work out. So just so you have an idea, right? So it's like a really crazy. It's almost like as if you decide to work out in the middle of Manhattan at lunchtime every day,
Hmm.
while you work like maybe a 12 to 5 job or 12
Hmm.
to 6 job or so. That was
Hmm.
my level of commitment. So I saw myself in a really great place at a top leadership position, believing I was very healthy until I was working out and I just simply couldn't move my legs. I was doing a leg press and I remember I couldn't move my legs. I'm like,
Hmm.
what the heck? Is there something wrong with this machine? So I took
Hmm.
the weights out and I still can't move my legs. I'm like, what's happening? So I went to my doctor. And then after assessing the situation, I was in a state of massive fatigue, of chronic fatigue and burnout. And I
Hmm.
did not notice it because I was always about doing, 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 that I didn't even pay attention to how my body was reacting. And then after I had this conversation with my doctor, I started to notice my level of anxiety going to work. I lived so close to my house, to my work. I lived like maybe 800 feet from my office space, and
Hmm.
that time, those minutes to get to work were of massive anxiety. So I would feel my body shaking, I would feel like crying, and I had direct reports. I didn't want to talk to anybody. I started to close my doors. I had a private office. I closed
Hmm.
my doors. I didn't want to talk to people.
Hmm.
So then I realized there's something really wrong with me. I was in massive burnout. So what does that mean? I was working so much that I actually, and I disguised my belief as a peak performer to actually hide the symptoms that I was having in my body. So my doctor said, you have to start working right now. You have to stop working. Otherwise, you're going to be the next one to have a heart attack in the middle of the street. And you're going to be
Hmm.
one of those people when you're 30 having a heart attack all of a sudden, and people don't understand why, because you look fit, you look nice, you look healthy, but actually you're not. So I
Hmm.
actually had to stop working for 3 months. And
Hmm.
that always drove me crazy because my whole identity was about being a peak performer. And now I can't work,
Hmm.
or I can't, or I was told not to work. So when I had that break, I hired a coach to help me out and just to see how my patterns were completely messing up with my whole identity. And this was the moment when I'm like, oh my God, is this what I can do for other people if this is
Hmm.
what I'm receiving from this person?
Hmm.
So this coach was amazing. And then since then, I've really immersed myself in a lot of deep personal development work. Although my bachelor is in psychology and I was already doing all of that for a long
Hmm.
time, but I feel that there was a new identity that had to be unfolded and with a
Hmm.
new set of values. So that's one of the reasons why I always tell people that there's a better way of getting results. Working hard gets you to some places, but it is really about working smart for you to sustain success and allow more things to happen. So when that happened, when I worked with this coach, I'm like, I'm sitting on the right side of the table, not the wrong side of the table. I'm
Hmm.
like, I'm sitting on the wrong side of the table. I need to be working with them, with the
Yeah.
employees, with the leaders. And excuse me, that was when I flipped the script.
Hmm.
So I then dedicated myself to learning how to help people as a coach, as an advisor. These are two different things, but just to learn the methodology because the transformation that I had was phenomenal. And I knew that I could help people so much because I walked the talk. So
Hmm.
it was a journey of recovery of my body. Burnout is a scar in the body. It creates a
Hmm.
trauma in the body. So you have to be even more mindful of your lifestyle.
Hmm.
And that's why I'm here actually in this community that we
Yeah.
live. That's exactly why I chose this place, because this place brings me peace and calm and nature and silence. And
Hmm.
um, and that's how I flipped that. So
Hmm.
it's been almost 10 years now, which is crazy just to think
Hmm.
about this. But that was why. So it was a huge, huge, huge breakthrough in my life and my career that got me into coaching.
Yeah. And did you say that there was a difference between coaching and advising? I don't know if I heard that wrong. And so I would love for you to touch on that. And then well, how would you refer yourself? Would you consider yourself a coach or advisor, a different term? So just curious on that that distinction.
Yes, yes. So I had to make these distinctions because,
Hmm.
well, my major is in psychology. I was never a therapist or a
Hmm.
psychologist, but a lot of people got that confused. And
Hmm.
as I was uh, studying or becoming a coach or developing the skill set of a coach, I was also an advisor.
Hmm.
Was an advisor for other companies internally. Like, what is the distinction between these things? So, uh, I would say that the advisor uses experience to tell people what is the best path, to give them the path, to give them the strategy,
Hmm.
to literally tell them right away
Hmm.
what they should do, even, or it's different than being a coach. When you're a coach, one of the premises of coaching is that it is important for you to let the other person find the right answers, to find
Hmm.
their path, to be able to make their own decisions. And there is a whole methodology to that. Sometimes the coach already sees the path, you
Yeah.
already, like you're heading this way. So
Hmm.
there is a methodology to guide people to that path so
Hmm.
that they have certainty that they were the ones making their own decisions. Because
Hmm.
we actually don't like to be advised unless we give permission to be advised, right?
Hmm.
So a coach, when the coach is advising without having permission to advise, usually that behavior is matched with some resistance. People
Hmm.
usually don't like to be told what to do. And that's why coaching is so powerful, because you you have ways or frameworks and methodologies to find your own answers as you work with someone that's guiding you, that's
Hmm.
showing you different pathways, different possibilities.
Hmm.
And in my work, sometimes I am the coach, sometimes I am the advisor,
Hmm.
because I do have a lot of experience. At this point, I've helped more than 1,000 people and I've seen it all. And
Hmm.
I've had my own. So, for example, if a client is, and this is actually happening right now,
Hmm.
like this client works probably 10, 12 hours per day, and she is a peak performer. She is actually a performance coach. She's extremely fit
Hmm.
and she wants to have a child. And I'm advising her,
Hmm.
you've got to slow down.
Hmm.
We have to, leverage our systems. You need to hire better people to help you out. This is the type of person you need to hire. This is the
Hmm.
kind of assistant you need to hire. This is why this assistant is not supporting you anymore.
Hmm.
I need to advise because I walked that walk, you
Hmm.
know? So could we have coaching conversations about that specifically? We could, but it would just take me a long time. It's like going around, to get to the same point. When my clients are very mindful of their resources and their time is very precious. So if I can give them an advice that will actually provide a shortcut that's going to save them a day, a month, or years to figure that out, I'm definitely going to do that. I'm
Hmm.
going to give that to them. But I'm also very sensitive to the moment when I need to be the coach and I need to hold space for them to find their own answers. And but I know how to dance with both. Now, I would say with my business, I do say I am a business advisor because my clients have me as their ghost CEO. So they want to have someone that thinks as a CEO, but is not the CEO, but thinks as one so that they can have a second brain, like a right hand person, to help them make decisions, quick decisions. So I do feel like it's more advisory, and I know how to get my coaching hat
Hmm.
and help them
Yeah.
as a coach.
Yeah. And I'm also super interested with your experience with Tony Robbins. I obviously watch a lot of his videos. I think he's amazing. So I know we talked about this in our first call, but for people who aren't familiar, can you explain what you did for, Tony Robbins's company and how you were a coach for them?
Yes, 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 yes. So, you know, uh, when I was going through this messed up episode of my life, right, when I had no idea what to do, this coach that helped me invited me to go to a Tony Robbins event called Date with Destiny. And for me, it's the best one. And so I flew from Brazil to Palm Springs just to go to this event. And um, this event is remarkable. It is amazing. Everybody listening to this, if you're thinking about going to one of his events, just go to David Destiny. It is wonderful. And there is a moment, I don't want to spoil the event, but there was a moment when he says one of my favorite quotes. He said, "It is in the moment of decision that your destinies change." And when he said, I feel goosebumps in my body. So when he said that, it just landed so hard.
Hmm.
And that the decision was, I will quit my job, my safe job, and I will become a coach to help others. That was the decision. So that moment, attending his first event was when I made that decision. With that decision, I made a second decision. I'm going to work with this guy.
Yeah.
So was
Yeah.
a second decision, so I decided to be a coach and I decided to work for that guy.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna work for that guy. So I remember walking around at the event and I was looking for information. I wanted to know, how can I be a coach? How can I be a coach? And nobody actually could give me clues about this. So I persisted and I did my deep research, and then I found out how to apply to be a coach for Tony Robbins.
Hmm.
And here's where synchronicity is magical and amazing. So, with that, the other decision that was a consequence was to move to the United States with my family. So, we were living in Brazil, we moved to the US, and I decided to move to Boca Raton here in Florida. And it's funny because I think that people don't know we are neighbors. But
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
didn't know about that, that's another
Yeah.
magical thing. Anyway, so, and I knew that Tony Robbins lived in California and
Hmm.
everything would be in California. So I'm talking with my husband and, I'm telling him I'm probably going to spend some time in California because they do this whole recruiting process and etc. So the year I move here, Tony Robbins moves to Boca Raton, actually to Palm Beach, and his whole team and his events start happening in my backyard, basically. So all of his events are happening in Boca Raton or in Palm Beach, and here I am, exactly where things are happening. And I mean, there are like a list of synchronicities that I could be listing here now, but I feel that it was just so precious that the decision was made, and then everything kind of lined up. So I was called to be one of their coaches. I was actually the only Brazilian in the United States helping and being one of their coaches. I was a peak performance business coach for the whole company. And And the whole recruiting process was in a hotel 10 minutes from my house.
That's great. Yeah, that's
I was
great.
the only local.
Hmm.
So that's kind of how it happened, and it was amazing. I always visualized a world map with pins, and these pins in different countries would mean places where my clients would be, and I've helped people in Asia, Africa, Europe,
Hmm.
Australia, New Zealand, of course, the Americas, you name it. So it was really cool. It was really fun.
Yeah, and were you working? So what's kind of the structure of the company? Like, were you working close to him? Who were you coaching? I just want to know, like, just like the relation to Tony Robbins, just because I'm a big fan of his.
Yes, absolutely. So Tony Robbins has a gigantic company, and
Hmm.
you have no idea until you become part of it. So there are
Hmm.
many layers to his companies, and there's a whole company dedicated only to coaching, only to
Hmm.
coaching. So um, there are hundreds of coaches around the world, by the way, and they're
Hmm.
amazing, all of them, because their training is incredible. So the I was part of that company, the
Hmm.
coaching company,
Hmm.
and I would also crew the events. But that was completely voluntary. That was me wanting really to go to his events. So I could go to his events and be part of the team helping actually clients. So I lost count of how many events actually I went to. So yeah, but there are many, many layers to the company, but it's really cool.
Yeah. And so fast forward to I guess where we are today. And so you were kind of saying that you are like the right-hand person to a lot of the CEOs you work with. So for the audience who might not know, can you kind of explain what you're doing now and the current process you go through in your coaching? I know we talked about I think a community that you launched recently. So kind of take me through the steps of what you're up to now.
Yes, sure. I think everything is an evolution. You are telling me
Hmm.
about how your company is evolving. It will
Hmm.
continue to evolve. So right now, I did make a decision to work specifically with business owners because I do believe in the power of entrepreneurship. I think that we as leaders, we have so many ways to impact people. We do that with our clients, with our offers, with our expertise, with our teams, their families. It's a massive ripple effect of change. So I really decided to work with this niche, and usually my clients do work with me as their right hand person. So they have me as their person to go to whenever they're thinking about a decision or whenever they're going through any kinds of challenges or really great things. Like I have a client right now acquiring two different companies. I have another client now wanting to have a baby.
Hmm.
And like they're always great things, but the business needs to be part of it. It needs to be integrated. I often say I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in work-life harmony. You blend the two and you make them work simultaneously. So I often work with people this way. And I also understand that sometimes that is a lot for a business owner who is just getting started or a business owner who is making around 200K a year, let's say. This is a business that has a lot of opportunities still to scale in terms of teams, systems, uh, marketing. You right? That's when like you ask that question: what's the difference between working for corporations and being an entrepreneur? That structure. So there is still a path for them to build that structure. So I have two other layers of support or levels of support. One is my mastermind, and I love it. It's called the CEO Advisory. And then in that mastermind, I teach the methodology that I've learned over the past 2 decades. And so we work together weekly. I teach the methodology, they implement it. So it's a group process, and we work collectively. And the new one is the community,
Hmm.
which is also very exciting because I believe in community. I think that we are much better together. And that just gives access to the community to every business owner who is actually serious about growth. So I love to talk about money there. I think that one of the things that sabotage our growth is our money mindset or our money relationship. If you believe that money is evil or rich people are bad, I mean, you can try to grow your business as much as you want, but you're going to hit ceilings all the time. And but if you want to be successful, we need to upgrade that money relationship. So that's the goal of the wealthy entrepreneur community that I just launched actually last week. So I'm very excited to see that being built, to see that growing, and to become like a massive group of thousands of entrepreneurs who are helping each other.
Yeah. No, that's super cool. And so at this point, you said you've seen and coached maybe thousands of people. And so I guess my first question is, what are some of the commonalities of what you've seen, I guess, amongst the common issues that a lot of CEOs are facing? And what are the most common situations, I guess, that you run through with a lot of your clients?
So I would, there are different steps of the journey or stages, let's say. I call them containers.
Hmm.
So, you know, those little Russian dolls, you
Yeah.
know, the mamuskas, like you have the little one and then have a bigger one and they fit in each other. That's
Hmm.
kind of how growing a business feels like, or that's how making money feels like. You start small, and then very quickly, that space that you have in that little doll is going to be small. You want to expand, you want to grow, and then you want to expand it to a bigger one. And then you're going to be expanding again and expanding again. And then you keep doing that. But the thing is that every time you want to expand your container or that space that you're into, you have to break through a barrier. You have to break through resistance. You know, you have to break through that zone of protection that you have, you know, between what you know where you are and the brand new space that's available to you. Some people say it's like your comfort zone, like breaking your comfort zone. But I look at it differently because I think that we always upgrade into different steps. I like to make it more tangible. For example, if you, one day you're making $1,000 for you, if that is your first container, can feel like a lot of money. At some point, you're like, I can't live with $1,000. I need $5,000. So you're growing to that new container, and then you work to make 5K. You make 5K, you're like, this is not enough. I need more. I want more.
Hmm.
And then expand to 10 and expand to 20. You know, so every time you do that, you keep expanding your wealth containers, you're going to need a new mindset, a new strategy, and a new skill set because they are going to be new. You're going to be addressing different challenges. You're going to be, you know, celebrating different wins. And that upgrade, that constant upgrade, is what people need to work on. So I say all of this because your question was, what was the biggest challenge that CEOs or business owners experience when growing this business? And these challenges are specific to each container, but knowing that this is the process, right? We're always upgrading to something bigger and better. Number one is to see their blind spots. They don't see their blind spots. And that's a big challenge. And these blind spots are the things that are actually preventing them from upgrading to the next container. So, because they don't see their blind spots, they're actually doing the same thing over and over again and not getting results. So, innovation is key. Being able to always step into new ways of doing things or better ways of doing things they actually don't they have no clue about. You know, this is every time when you're tapping into what I call the zone of not knowing, what you already know that you don't know and what you don't know that you have no idea about. You know, what you
Hmm.
don't know that you don't know, that's where the new containers are. So you really have no idea how it feels like to make $20,000 or 50 or $100,000 until you get there. And we think we do, but we actually don't. So I would say that those are the things. And to be able to break through these barriers or to break through resistance, and resistance will come. It's expected. That's even how the stock market works. In the stock market, there is a resistance level, there's support level. Those are called psychological levels of a stock. What does that mean? People, if you know, if the stock goes too high, it's going to hit a resistance level. And what is that? Fear. That's people, group of people afraid of losing money or missing out. And then they contract. It's too much. It's too risky. It's too high. They bounce back. They contract to lower levels, you know? So this is what happens over and over again. And that's why trying to grow a business alone is so difficult because you're going to keep hitting your resistance levels and you bounce back. And that's very frustrating. It's very normal for clients. Let's say your baseline, your minimum pay is $10,000. And then in a month, you make 30 and you're like so happy about it. And then guess what? What happens the next month? You'll go back to 5K, let's say.
Mhm.
You're like, what the heck? I was making 10 and then I made 30 and I'm back at 5? How did this happen? Resistance. It was too much. It was too scary, although very exciting, but you're not used to this. So I think that's the game. That's how I play the game of business with my clients. And of course that the more they grow the business, the the more resistance levels or aspects of resistance will show up because now there are people and systems and the market and economy, and so be it. You're more
Mhm.
exposed to those risks. So I would say those are the three. It
Yeah.
wasn't a simple question,
Mhm.
but I hope this is making sense.
No, it makes perfect sense. And that leads me well to my next question of what are some of the common traits? Because I know you've probably analyzed a lot of CEOs and work with a bunch of different companies at this point. What are some of the common traits or maybe anecdotes or stories that you've noticed amongst the CEOs who perform, I'll say the best, like in terms of they build the biggest companies and have the fastest growth. And so I just want to know the common traits you've seen.
Yes. So number one thing that comes to my mind is that they get so sick and tired of their current container that they are capable of doing anything to break through. So there's,
Mhm.
I think that was my moment of decision at the Tony Robbins event. Like, oh, it's the moment of decision.
Yeah.
I was so sick and tired. And so they get to that point of decisiveness. They're so sick and tired that they can't see any other way but get the outcome that they want. All right. So I think that people need to get to that threshold. Then the second thing is that they just do stuff. Like they take action immediately. Immediately. Like I just spoke with a client about like a really complex strategy actually, like a few minutes before talking to you. And like a minute later, she's already implementing the strategy. She's not like, I'm tired today. I'm not there's no such a thing. They're very proactive, and they just do things. And they learn how to do things with fear. So it's like, I'm afraid as hell, no problem. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And um I must also say that the most successful entrepreneurs that I helped by far were mission driven. They were deeply mission driven. They were deeply focused on a purpose that was not about them, not at all. It was about people, it was about others, it was about adding value, it was about helping people evolve in every aspect of our existence, from finances to weight loss to real estate to parenting, uh, you name it, you know? So 100%, like my ultra ultra successful clients are all mission driven, all of them, no doubt.
What's interesting is I think I hear that so many times across all the people I've spoken with. And it makes the most sense because the person who cares the most about their customers, about their clients, is going to do the best by them and therefore create the most value and create the biggest company. So it makes sense conceptually, but it's interesting to see that being played, throughout like society and whatnot. And so that's
Mhm.
super cool. And so, is there any other bits of advice that maybe I didn't touch on for maybe a little younger CEOs or more seasoned veteran CEOs that are looking to scale their business that maybe I forgot to touch on?
Um, yes. So talking about this, like that my most successful clients were all mission driven. They knew the value that they deliver. They knew that. And I saw recently a quote that really stuck to me. Like it said something like, the value of your company is a reflection of your self worth. So we must feel worthy as well to be able to give to others, to be able to give value. I think that's why I burned out, honestly, in the past. It was all about giving, 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 and very little receiving. Receiving help, receiving support, receiving compassion, receiving money. All the receiving was very neglected. So when I work with people, I think that one of the first things I do is to create that balance between giving and receiving, because I know that they tend to give because they're all mission driven. That's what they are born to do. They're born to give. And the balance between giving and receiving is a consequence of multiple things. And it is about our self-worth, about making ourselves a priority, taking care of ourselves. This is not like woo conversation. It's just simple math.
Yeah.
If you're giving X, you've got to receive the same at least, you know. And actually, if you want to give more, you actually have to receive more than what you give, because that's the only way for you to have extra to give. So that was a big lesson as well. Even working for Tony Robbins, there was this concept of having a tank of energy that overflows, and people only get what overflows. What overflows is what you give, so you can remain intact.
It's a great
So
idea.
working really on your self-worth is really important. And that's also related to how you receive money. Servants have a really hard time receiving money. Even when they're born in wealthy families, they can feel very guilty about charging or making money. Um, they don't want to receive, or they um, neglect money or deny money. Like, I don't need this. Don't worry. That's okay. You don't have to pay me. Like, there's this whole conversation. So, right behind me here, I have a poster that says, my work is of high service and worthy of massive compensation. So, this is a reminder for not only for me, but as well for my clients, that our work is of high service and honoring that, and therefore worthy of massive compensation. And the more we receive, the more we give. So, for everybody listening to this and being a new entrepreneur, I really urge you to be mindful of your giving, and so that you can continue to give and pay attention to the receiving part. Do your job with yourself, take care of yourself, nurture yourself, hydrate yourself. Look at this. Like, this is my best friend. Like, grab your water, take care of your body for real. And be open to receiving money as well for your work. That's the only way for us to grow. And believe me, your ideal clients will be so thankful to pay you. They will be so grateful for the money that they are giving you, because they know you're going to help them in every way. So it doesn't matter what kind of business you actually have. This serves for any type of business. If you're selling a product, if you're selling a service, you've got to be mission driven, remembering to receive. So I would say that this is like a non-negotiable. if out of this conversation, this is the outcome that you guys are getting from this, I'm happy. I'm very happy.